I finally received my Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. I'm actually shooting on it as my B cam. My A cam is the S5iix, so you can kind of see together what the two images look like. I know a lot of people are going to be putting these two cameras up against each other because they really are so similar. I will be making a full in-depth comparison in the future, but that's not what this video is about. This is going to be an initial impressions review, as well as some quirks that I've already found with the Cinema 6K that I wish weren't there, but it happens. There's no perfect camera. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to share who I think this camera's for, because I've only used it for a day and a half, but I can already tell who Blackmagic made this camera for, or at least who I think Blackmagic made this camera for. I never really wanted to make tons of gear reviews because my passion isn't necessarily to review gear. I love gear, but I found myself making more and more gear reviews because those are essentially the ones that do well on YouTube for a small channel. I really struggled with that because I didn't want to be known as someone that just reviews gear. But over this break, I realized that I get to play a role in your purchasing decision. And these are the videos that I watch on YouTube more than anything else. So I just wanted to say to the audience that it truly is an honor making these reviews, comparing the 6K with the S5iix, all of these different things, because they're videos that I wish someone would have made so I could watch them and make a better buying decision. So I hope this video is going to be helpful for you, and let's just get right into it. The Cinema 6K was a really confusing camera when it was announced for a lot of people, myself included. But I took the plunge. I made a whole video on the reasons why I purchased it, so I won't go over that. But after actually getting the camera in my hands, there are many pros and a couple of cons that I've already noticed. So no in-depth tests or anything fancy or crazy. I'm not necessarily sure what Blackmagic did with this camera, but the image is actually so beautiful. I've never really experienced having a camera and looking at the monitor and immediately thinking this is a usable image. I don't need to grade it. I don't need to do anything to it. I've had cameras that were close. I've always needed to do a couple things. And even with the Cinema 6K footage, I will still manipulate it, make it my own, add different tweaks. But right off the bat, straight out of camera, these images look so good. When I was shooting in downtown Orlando, I was looking down at my screen, and it was a weird experience because I was instantly inspired by the image that was coming straight out of camera. I didn't have that with my C70, FX6, any other camera. They would look good, but it didn't look like the image was ready. I can't really put my finger on it, but the colors, highlight roll off, everything about the image just looks complete. I'm not going to try to rave about the image too much, even though that's the most important part of this camera and the thing that I enjoy the most. I'll just keep it moving. This might be a little controversial because a lot of people talk about the form factor of this camera and how they don't really like it. And I completely understand because there are certain quirks about the body that I don't really like. But in my hands, I'm just gonna grab it. In my hands, this camera feels really comfortable. I like where my hand sits on the bottom. Some people have even made jokes about how slanted this grip is, but there's a reason. It like fits in your hand. Usually when you're rigging out a camera, you slant your grip because that's how your hand naturally falls. Your hand doesn't normally go straight up and down like the C70, which puts your hand in a really awkward position. This is just really comfortable. And yeah, that was a big unexpected plus for me. It just felt right, felt like a balanced camera. I will say though that I did not want to rig this camera because it seemed really annoying. I didn't want to hide this beautiful 5-inch screen. So I can understand why people don't like the body. But for something I just want to grab, take a couple shots, go explore, do whatever, this body shape is incredibly comfortable. Let me put it back on the slider. A couple other thoughts after actually using this camera. I really enjoy the button layouts. I like the 3 function buttons on the top. You can set them to whatever you want. I just like where everything lands. It really feels like they thought about the filmmaker first, since it is a cinema camera and not a hybrid camera that has to also appeal to photographers. And with that being said, the 5-inch screen on the back is such a joy to work with. I didn't have to rig it up. I didn't feel the need to put a monitor on the top because it just looks so incredible. It's 1500 nits. I don't need an external monitor. So all those different features put together make this an incredible run and gun camera in my opinion, and perfect for my use cases and why I bought it. So I'm not disappointed in purchasing the camera whatsoever, but there are a few quirks that I want you guys to know about. Some that I expected and others that I didn't, that are very annoying. The first quirk that I did know about was the battery life. It is pretty bad. I was expecting the worst, so I guess it was better than what I was expecting. I shot for around 2.5 hours and used 1.5 batteries. So it lasted a pretty long time. I just was always kind of nervous. It reminded me of the R5C where I constantly had to change batteries and didn't want to use a battery grip and all of that nonsense. But the one thing that was pretty annoying about the battery situation is that the voltage meter read much lower than it actually was. It would go to red and then stay there for 45 minutes, which is about like 60% of the battery. It did make me feel a little uneasy because the voltage meter just wasn't accurate, but I just changed the battery every hour and didn't have a problem. Another quirk that I found is that the screen is not necessarily color accurate. It still is a beautiful screen. The contrast and brightness are just perfect. And with this camera, you're shooting in Blackmagic RAW, so you're gonna tweak the white balance and tint in post anyways. But I just wanted to mention it because that was a quirk that I was personally surprised about. I haven't done a deep dive on this camera, so I'm sure for the full review, I'll have a whole list of quirks. But the last quirk that I wasn't expecting that affects me personally and is really frustrating is the fact that the D-squeeze ratios are preset to whatever resolution you're shooting in. That makes zero sense to me. I know why they did it. The 6K open gate is preset to 1.6 times, which right out the gate gives you a 2.4:1 aspect ratio. I should be able to customize it, put whatever I want. This doesn't affect your image directly, so when you put it in your editor, you're gonna have to de-squeeze it anyways. It's just to monitor it. But it is annoying because I have a 5-inch screen there, specifically because I don't want to put an external monitor and I don't want to have to de-squeeze it on the monitor. And now for the last section of this video, which is strictly opinionated, and that's who I think this camera is for. It is a pretty confusing camera, so I'll just lay it straight out. If you value image quality more than anything else and you want something that you can just grab and go and get the best image possible for the least amount of money with little to no work in post, then this camera's for you. If you want something easy and convenience is one of the main selling factors when you're purchasing a camera, then this one might not be for you. It doesn't mean that it's a difficult camera to use, it's just not as easy as everything else. It doesn't have autofocus, doesn't have IBIS, it doesn't have a lot of creature comforts that some of the mirrorless hybrid cameras have. But with all that being said, the image quality far outweighs it for me personally. I do already have an S5iix, so I do have an easy run and gun camera in that way. So to sum up the whole video, in case you skipped everything, you didn't want to watch it, the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K has incredible image quality. I was really surprised personally. It's a really easy cinema camera to use. It feels like it was made with a filmmaker in mind. And you don't necessarily need to rig it out with that 5-inch screen. It's beautiful and easy to use in that way as well. So you can just grab it and go and get incredible looking images without the need of rigging up your camera. Now for the cons. It's not just that the battery life is bad, which it was better than I thought, but still not good. It's the battery meter. It doesn't read correctly, and I could see that giving me anxiety on set easily. The second con that I noticed that I didn't expect was the color accuracy of the monitor. It's pretty off, but with B-roll, it's not that big of an issue. And then the third con that affects me directly that I've noticed right away is the fixed D-squeeze ratio in relation to your resolution. That just doesn't make sense. It needs to be fixed. But with all that being said, this really is a great camera and I'm glad I purchased one. I've always used Blackmagic cameras, but the L mount, the image quality, and everything that comes with this camera made me choose it, and I'm glad that I did. I will be making more content on this camera. This isn't an in-depth review, it's just my initial thoughts on it. I know a lot of people were asking me what my thoughts were, so I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible. But I will be making a comparison between these two cameras because that's a video that I would want to watch, and especially if I was making a decision between the two, I know how important it is. So if that interests you and you want to be notified of that, consider subscribing. Everything in this video is graded using phantom LUTs, so if you do enjoy the colors in this video or any of my other videos, that's part of my secret sauce to creating the grades that I have. But yeah, that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. I can't believe I actually got this video out while having a newborn and doing a bunch of other stuff. But I did see the value in you guys having this video sooner than later, so I hope you appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.